Yeah, I might not like me for this one.
You you can't just walk when you married. You can't just walk out the door and go to store. Go to store. You got to report where you going. Your wife sitting there, and you just walk out the door. She like, what the fucky? What the fucky? What the hell just happened? Oh, you being punished now? What the hell you up to? You can't even walk out the door without checking in. And tell me how that's improving your life.
All right, so based on what you see with this video, it's gonna get a little crazy. It's getting a little controversial. I'm not gonna lie. I had a I had a conversation with somebody. Actually, it was one of my clients, and they had a very strong positioning on marriage and the idea of marriage, and I was inspired to do this because of that. No disrespect to the brother right here. I'll make sure I let that be known as a beginning that this video is not a knock to him and his expression of opinions. There's actually two videos that I'll be showing about this comment because in the space of counseling, a lot of us we can see clients on a regular basis, and especially those who are hurt or in more of a hurtful space. At some point you do kind of get this positioning of asking, is it worth it? You know what I mean? And so that's kind of what I want to break down today with this one. It's going to be deep. I will say that. It's going to get deep. Matter of fact, let me get myself ready. Let me get myself ready because, yeah, this is a very common topic in today's time. And it actually kind of goes into my fundamental beliefs that um, in the next 100 years, I don't know if marriage is going to be a thing anymore. And it's not because of anything that this gentleman has said or anybody to that nature. It is just the concept of the belief that many people have in discussing, it really at this point in this video, as you kind of see, man, I didn't play the whole thing. Is it's the ROI. It's the ROI that we don't really talk about in marriages, and we don't necessarily talk about the risk that it is required. Because there's various points to this, and again, there's two different videos. So there's his video that kind of has started this off. And there's a video from a woman who actually talks about why she doesn't think women should get married. And so, I think again, I got to run this back. I just got to run this back because he said a lot. You know what I'm saying? He said a lot, and I think it's important. So
You don't need no wife. Hell no. You need a bigger crib. You need your own house. You need some space, some privacy. That's the shit you need in your life. You don't need no wife. That's the last fucking thing you need, bro. Any girl who has convinced you that somehow your life is gonna be so much better by getting married, they lying. They capping. They gonna change. They gonna switch up.
all right, let me stop right there. All right, so there's a couple parts in this, and so again, there's no brother. If you see this and it gets back to you, I promise you, there's no disrespect.
Back pedal. They gonna play in your face. They gonna
You still
test
got a
you. They
lot to
gonna
say.
try you. They gonna get.
You still got a lot to say. There's no disrespect behind it. It really isn't. And I promise you, seriously, this is. I know somebody gonna read this or watch this. It could be a guy watching and may not agree with what I'm about to say. This is not me trying to pander. I don't believe in pandering. I don't believe in doing anything to just get engagement from a certain side. So again, I'm going to talk about men and women in this video. I'm going to talk about men and women in this discussion because I think it is something that is very prevalent. What I have learned, even myself, again, I like to be honest and transparent in these conversations, is we have very strong positionings after a substantial amount of experience. So, usually people who express themselves on not doing something again is because something happened to them that was so detrimental that it augmented their view on that. I will admit, because I believe this, and I love, again, other clinicians. If you see this, let me know your thoughts because I think it's true. And again, for preference, disclaimer. I didn't put out a disclaimer in the beginning. I am a counselor in training. Okay, I'm not a fully licensed therapist. Nothing of that sort. I am in the process. So again, it's just totally my opinions and thoughts. The point of this is to be educational for you guys to understand. With that being said, um, we don't talk about this enough. We do not talk about the positioning due to the trauma that some of us have experienced. In life, you will experience multiple heartbreaks, not only from intimate relationship levels, but from losing loved ones to parents to dogs, grief and trauma affects us in so many different ways. Um, that a lot of us will start having this positioning. Even myself, I am not married. I don't have kids. I believe in marriage. I will also say though that sometimes, because of what I do and the things that I learn about human behavior in my own experiences, there's been points in time where I have even had augmented and jaded views when it comes to marriage. I still think though that it is very important, and I will argue from a statistical standpoint. I don't need no fact checking because I think it's just the truth that more men often do become more successful when they're in successful marriages. Key word is successful, and the second word is healthy. Successful, healthy marriages. We have to make that very apparent, very clear. How do we do that? Constant communication, accountability, finding somebody who's has the same values and understandings as we do, um, and selecting the right person. I've heard this many a times. Respectfully, I have failed at this many a times. Rather, I have been the one to leave somebody or somebody has left me. Is that the person that you pick for the rest of your life will be by far one of the biggest decisions that you make. I'm also a firm believer that when people get married, they often can change because their intentions in the beginning were not necessarily clear, and that we can be blindsided by that. So again, he says a lot in this video that I think is true. Right, there are some men who get into marriages solely because of the emotional angle sometimes that can be played to appease their woman. We hear it all the time. Happy wife, happy life. Do I think a woman happiness matters? Absolutely. I want to make that clear. I also make it clear that a woman's happiness should not be the only thing to make a marriage work. It's impossible because what we find or define as happiness will change as we continue to grow and expand as people. So I think that is true. When you make decisions solely for somebody's happiness alone, you're already kind of halfway in, halfway out in your own experience. Because again, when people are together and it's a marriage, it is supposed to be a common agreement, and then also it is supposed to be rooted in service. I'm going to say that probably in every video. You know, you have to be able to serve each other at its fullest capacity to really understand uh, the importance of the fruitfulness of what marriage can bring. When you don't have that, you get a lot of off balance and resentfulness in those relationships. Second part I want to address because he mentioned something. Let me get back to this in a second. I want to play the video again.
Bored with you, they're gonna turn you into the private entertainment, they're gonna load you down with kids and debt, they're gonna track you, they're gonna track you, they're gonna
Okay, so again, a lot of this seems expressed at a situation and moment that he's experienced. And again, no disrespect to you, brother. I promise you, that as many guys I saw the comments, it's very common. I've experienced it myself. There is some people that we can date that can come off controlling. There's a lot of people in relationships that have control issues. We don't talk about that enough. We don't express that enough. Sometimes even to our clients as clinicians, counselors in training, etc. Because obviously building that therapeutic rapport, we want our client to feel understood, validated, heard. I would also challenge us to always shoot it to them straight, right? Because again, when people come to us, they are looking to better themselves. And with us having these skills and the learnings of understanding human observation, it's important that we give it to people straight. It's important to let somebody know when they have a control complex. It's important to let people know sometimes when they're the problem. We have to do that. That is one of, to me, one of the ethical and moral obligations that we have as again counselors in training, interns, clinicians, supervisors, etc. Like that is to me the most important thing because again we are, you know, some people are spending a lot of money to get the help that they can get, and it's important for us to really make sure we talk about those things, especially if people are coming to us about their relationship problems. Um, I will also agree that there is something that he said, but I'm going to make it more neutral, right? So I'm going to validate his experience as a man because I do think a lot of men do experience this sense of control and they make against certain decisions to appease their wife, happy life. Again, that is true, right? Because again, it matters, right? You with somebody, you want to do all you can to make them happy. The only part I don't agree with is that it takes two people to make kids. Okay, Uh, I'm always going to put that more onus on the man because we are the ones that produce the child. Without us, they cannot have kids, right? We have to think, even in the most intimate spaces and moments, about those decisions that we make. Okay, so yes, in the heat of the moment, people make bad decisions. As a man, as a person, when you make these decisions, every time you do that act, which is why I think discipline with intimacy for men is very important. Again, I can understand the need, but when we make decisions and we're surprised by the results, we shouldn't be, because every time you do that particular action, there's always a possibility that a child could be conceived. So that happens. The other part is too that yes, when you have a kid, things can change. I think you learn a lot about people in three different stages: childbirth, marriage, grief. That's the biggest time you will learn about anybody in their truest sense. Because a lot of things are being altered with childbirth. Biology is being altered with the woman, right? Postpartum depression is very real. We would never take that away. And as a man, if you ever try to take that away, that's part of the problem. What women go through is a real thing. They're going through biological changes, right? We see animals and how they can be protective of their kids. That is a natural biological instinct. It is not meant to be harmful at first. It is also important though to help somebody navigate through that, and it's also important for the woman to navigate that and be self-aware enough when that is happening, where it could potentially cause strife to the relationship. Part that. Okay. Um, the debt part. The debt part, I will always put onus on a man with that. It's something that I've had to learn. It's something I'm continuously learning. That as a man, that we are supposed to lead where we're the strongest, and so we should not make decisions to appease somebody else if it's going to cause a detriment. Again, real leadership is making those decisions even if it's not favorable. Okay, so if you don't have the money to do something, sometimes you got to just tell that person frankly. And if they throw an attitude about it, then well, that's on them, right? We cannot make every decision to appease somebody else because this is the result. This is the result, right? And again, no disrespect to this brother, no disrespect to anybody in the comments, because again, I understand as men why we have a positioning that we do with marriage right now. The ROI is kind of low. It is. So for people to take it personal, it's not about just you being a good person. No disrespect, right? There's a lot of amazing, beautiful women out here who are and can be amazing wives and mothers, right? Similar to there's a lot of amazing men who could be husbands and great husbands and fathers. What tends to happen is that due to our experience, we generalize a population, and then our selection process does not get any better. We're still picking things based off of what we're used to versus what is beneficial. So when a lot of us get these bad apples that we pick, we're not getting any better because our positioning is so strong with the the group now that we just throw it all away. Okay, so I want to say that about that is that there's so many parts to this, and I think he says a little bit more. I just want to run back just real quick.
It'll track you. Every time you can't even go to the store without when you married, you be like, oh, I'm ready to go to the store. You can't just walk when you married. You can't just walk out the door and go to the store. Go.
That's the part I want to get back to. Okay, so I this drives me crazy. And again, no disrespect to this brother. No disrespect to this brother. There's two parts to this. I promise you. Um, yeah, you have to talk to your partner about different decisions. Uh, it's called consideration. On the other end, though, it's the difference between consideration and there's a need to control, right? So if somebody's constantly asking what you're doing, where you're going, etc., there's something there within themselves where they have to feel like they have to control it. Usually it's an anxious attachment or it's a wound they have not worked on, right? Okay, so this when you have people like that, it's very easy to personalize that. And I would never tell anybody to tolerate that. I would never tell anybody to tolerate that. It does not have to be tolerated, right? Usually, though, we tend to act like we don't see those signs with people before we get to these steps. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the part that kind of drives me a little crazy. Like, people show bits and pieces of themselves before you get married. Okay? Like, we very much just are in a state of infatuation. usually wearing rose tinted glasses because everything is great and love is amazing and it's a blissful thing. But people in moments are showing you different pieces about them. Oftentimes, we do not combat those things or address them because we just embrace it as who they are. And it can be who they are, and you can accept that. It does not mean it has to be a beneficial thing for you. Don't talk about that. We don't question ourselves when we come to these things. However, I will always say this though: if you don't feel like you should have to ask or to tell your partner about different things, I need you to reevaluate your perspective on relationships. Again, it's a lot of compromise in marriages. That's why a lot of people are unhappy. That's why a lot of people are unhappy because they have an inability to die to their ego. It's a fact. It does not make you less of a man if you have to ask your wife for something because it's just you being considerate of that person. Again, there's a difference between consideration and control. When you feel like you cannot do anything because you're being controlled or constrained by somebody, that's a bigger problem. But if you have something planned out and maybe y'all got kids or something like that, the honorable thing to do is to always consider your partner because guess what? You signed up for it. That's what comes with marriage. That's what comes with a relationship. If you want to be selfish, don't be with somebody. It's kind of that simple, man. And as y'all get more secure in a relationship, you may not have to do that. You can just say, hey, baby, I gotta go somewhere. I gotta go. I'm going to the gym, whatever. And at some point, if it's a truly established and healthy relationship, those things won't be a problem. We have an attachment style issue with relationships. This is why we have these constricted feelings. Like, secure relationships take time to build, man. So that's just one part of the video. Again, brother, no disrespect to you. I appreciate the perspective. I always love to see the realness of what we think as guys. Because I think this video is a representation of what many guys are thinking. And before women say that men are just the problem, we do have to reevaluate what is causing people to feel this way. I still think, again, that both sides are on a hill talking about how great they are, and nobody wants to come together in the middle. That is the problem. Okay. So that was part one of this beautiful masterclass. Give me 1 second. The second one, I really enjoy. I actually enjoy her content. She's so funny to me. On a video where I say that marriage is not beneficial to women, I've had a couple women come and say, well, it's beneficial to me because I don't pay bills. You think it's beneficial, but it's still not. The only way him paying all the bills is beneficial is if he can afford to pay somebody to cook and clean. If you're doing the cooking and the cleaning, then you're doing the cooking and the cleaning for free room and board. If Okay. Again, neutral, objective, and I feel and think I have a right to express this because I actually have women clients of her age, younger, do have positioning on marriage as well. Again, we often talk about marriage and anti-marriage coming from men. There's a lot of women who don't want to be married anymore. There's a lot of women who don't want to have kids, and they have a right to that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I think we have to really understand that finances is only one part of an established relationship, right? I want to make 2 points here, okay, before people come for me. If you have the ability to provide for a woman as a man, I think you should do that. Okay, I think that is really within our biological and environmental right as men. We are meant to protect and provide. Key word is if you have the ability to. Okay, if that person also understands where you're at and they're also able to build with you if you're able to not. Okay, that matters in context. So before everybody go off and be like, all women are thinking this, not. I don't think that positioning of a woman wanting a person to provide for them isn't an issue. Women crave security and stability. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Does it make them gold diggers by default? It doesn't. We like to use that angle. Some women just crave stability. Some women just want to be a stay-at-home mom. Again, biological. There's nothing wrong with that. I do think though that what she said here is a valid point, and that centers around again finances only control so much of a relationship. Uh, if you're doing your due diligence in the position where you're being provided for, I think that's great. I think if finances is the only thing that you're looking for in the sense of a marriage or a relationship or the key reason why you're going to be with a guy, I would argue, and I tell this to my clients who are all great, that you're going to have a hard time finding a man to fit every box. Okay, so really, when you think about the values of things that are important to you, if finances is your thing, that's great. I love that for you. I think that's amazing. You're putting yourself in a position to play in a very dangerous field. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean I think you should settle? I did not say that. I would never say that. Again, pick what works for you based off of your values. That's important. That is important. Um, Again, though, I just think when I think bigger picture, when I think bigger picture, is that sometimes when we have these thoughts of certain standards of things, we're diminishing different qualities that other people can have in other areas. I think the benefit of partnership is that you have somebody that is willing to do anything and everything for you, not just when things are good, but when things are bad. Right? That matters because again, if you go solely based off of what somebody produces right now, we have a long way to go as a society. Okay, so even those who are doing very fine financially right now, they're everybody has their turn. I was told this, especially as a man, everybody has their turn. And so, what happens? What matters when that turn happens to you? Finances do not take away the pain of emotional infliction. Finances does not solve grief, right? It actually can create more coping issues. That does not fix anything alone. We have to find more characteristics that really are benefiting each other. And I would say, especially women, I think, again, financial provision is very important. I would never take that away. But you also should want to crave stability, emotional intelligence, the ability to be receptive to emotions, understanding, patience, so many other characteristics, right? So, again, that's just one part. Let me finish the rest of this video and I'll provide my thoughts.
Somebody came to me and said, "Hey, you're going to cook and clean and take care of my kids, and in exchange, I'm going to give you a place to stay." I would say, you know what, maybe if I was a college student, that might be a good plan. But I'm going to pass on that because that sounds like hell, especially when I know how much chefs make, cleaners, nannies, etc., especially when I know how much they make a year. And you want me to do it for free 99 for a roof over my head? Nah, no. You
Okay. So again, when we talk about financial provision, I would there's a comment on the other side I think is true that again when we think of financial provision does not mean you have access to those finances. You're just being accredited for your presence. It does not mean that that person values you any more than somebody who does not have money. So again, this is just big picture thinking. We don't think about that. So when we think about just people characteristics and what's important to them, with people that we date, you got to ask yourself this, and this is a question that I ask all my clients: is if I was sick, would they take me to the bathroom and wipe me if I had to use the bathroom? If I had to poop, would they wipe my poop? If I was sick, would they truly care for me? Those characteristics will matter way more than financial provision. Again, because when you have certain situations, and I will argue that a lot of this is the reason why a lot of people have a lot of midlife crises. I would argue that sometimes, um, especially moms that I've worked with, when their kids are 18, 19 years old, and they've been at the stay-at-home mom forever, they lose a sense of identity um, because they never had a real ability to kind of go out and test their wings because of a decision that they made a little bit younger that was important to them. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Uh, but you want to, if you're going to be with somebody that is financially provided, you also want them to be able to give you the ability, because some people are really getting controlled out here, give you the ability to also still live the life that you will want. Um, so going to the fundamental thing before I wrap up, uh, marriage doesn't benefit women. I argue that it does, and I think that it benefits both sides for two different reasons. I think for women, obviously, depending on the person, a lot of it is depending on who you're with, because what we know about marriage at the end of the day, outside of love, essentially is like a business contract. Okay, uh, God is involved depending on what you believe in, but it's a business contract. Y'all are essentially business partners. If the business is thriving, it's amazing. If the business crashes, y'all both crash. And if the business dissolves, somebody's usually getting something, right? So we gotta. Those are things that we gotta keep in mind. I think for me sometimes it's really hearing both sides. It's just it really breaks my heart because it just sounds like two hurt sides. that's that's what I get from this. Excuse me. It's just that people just want to be loved and seen, and I just don't think that people are really taking their time, actively taking their time to find people that are looking and checking all the boxes. Or I like to emphasize 80% of the box. If they're checking 80% of the box of what you're looking for, if you're able to navigate and deal with that 20%, you will have a successful relationship. You will have a successful marriage. Because love is an action. It's bigger than a feeling. It's more about growing together and continuously having values that are important to you and finding ways to learn together. It should be in equalness as far as respect, love, understanding, and giving to each other's needs, right? I think the moment you start pulling away from those things is the moment that you have significant problems. So I think it benefits both sides. I just think both sides don't see the point anymore, which again, I will argue comes from a place of a lot of unresolved trauma, uh, and bad partner selection. Respectfully, I know there's people who are playing games. I know there's people that are putting masks. I get it. I've been there. Love's a risk. I understand it. However, I will firmly stand on that when you're dating somebody, you need to be observant with everything they do. You need to pay attention to every single thing they do in every single season. I firmly believe you should not make a strong decision with anybody until you see every side of them. Not just when it's good. Because when you see the bad side, you're going to see more of the bad side and you're going to see the good. Especially as life goes on. Because what do we know about life? It's everlasting, it's continuous, and suffering always happens. Are they the same way when life's not going good versus when it is? If that's the case, you got to keep that in mind. Doesn't mean that they're wrong. You just got to ask yourself, can you navigate that with that person? If you're going through something, how are they with you? When they're upset at you, how are they with you? Are they respectful? Are they mean? I'm telling you, I've learned. I've learned that, right? One of the biggest lessons that I've had to learn, something I had to swallow uh, as a person, is that you have to be kind, always, right? I used to be mean and mad. It's not good. I caused a lot of emotional damage to somebody because of that. I could think of several people I probably do, right? And I can own that because you learn as you go on, and if you really do the work, you understand that relationships really should not be complex. Y'all can have differences, and it still should be a level of respect, love, and kindness. That's why I'm very adamant when I talk to my clients how they should navigate these things. So, where am I getting at with this? People just need to heal, man. Marriage has a lot of benefits. It's just our selection needs to change. What is important to us needs to change, and the values of what we mention may need to be more open. Again, what's important to you, stick to that, stay with that, but understand that when we do those things, we can be limiting ourselves because every characteristic with somebody based off their strongest value does not mean they're going to be strong in the other areas that we care for. That is a fact. And as always, I like to keep this wrapped up underneath 30 minutes. So again, this was another 30-minute master class. That was a counseling trainer. I appreciate both of the creators' videos. Again, no disrespect to either one of them. I appreciate the videos. They provide perspective. And again, my goal is to teach, navigate, educate, whatever I can do to do my part. And I appreciate anybody who's showing love and support. I want to keep this going. Let's keep it going. Make sure to subscribe. Check me out on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. But again, that episode. Appreciate you guys. Till next time. Peace.